Please help support the channel by visiting our Amazon store, affiliate link below. Hey, what's going on everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo, this is the Mundane Matt channel, and you're watching Rustl'd. And you're probably asking yourself, but Matt, weren't you calling your show Weird, Wild, and What the Fuck? And the answer is yeah, I was. But I decided to change it. In fact, I felt it was the best business decision for my channel to make that particular change. Part of the problem right now that we're seeing is that YouTube has been massively demonetizing videos across the board from a multitude of different channels, and you have to very much work within their new guidelines in order to stay afloat. And that's precisely what I'm doing. This is a business decision to drop the WTF portion of the video because, well, it gets flagged a lot because I say it. So I have to be very careful going forward with how things are done. But also, Rustl'd itself is an idea that I had 2.5 years ago when I first moved to Portland and first went full-time on YouTube. I was so full of hope and optimism at the time, and I still am to this day, just I'm still trying to figure out ways to make it work, but I wanted to create a YouTuber like community network. I wanted there to be like a podcast network where we'd have up-and-coming channels, create content, and have it scheduled, you know, certain days, certain times, so on and so forth, and have it be a community guideline, a community space, and then grow from there. And I still want to do something like that. I do believe, and maybe not as much the platform of YouTube, but definitely the community within it. This is a great place to meet new people, hear new voices, and get new experiences. And I want to see that going on. So I'm changing this in hopes of stepping forward towards that dream I had a couple years ago, at least a baby step, and then also making what I believe to be a solid business decision for the channel. So that's just the background on that, and I just want to let you guys know. So that there we have it on that one. But let's jump into the first story today, because this is one that's blown up right now, and it's all about Playboy. Now, Playboy is going through some changes. I think that's the best way to describe it. Ever since they announced that they were going to, you know, stop putting nude photos in the magazine, they have been hit with a lot of cancellations because people out there who, you know, want to read the articles, that do enjoy reading the interviews, the articles about stuff going on in the world, and as well as the short stories, very much are, you know, on board with the nudity. They want to go fire off some knuckle children once they're done. And so as a result of this, Cooper Hefner, Hugh Hefner's 26-year-old son, who's now basically kind of running the show over there, decided to bring everything back. And in doing that, he created a very, very, very big shitstorm that is currently at the doorsteps when they brought in their first transgender playmate. Saying here, for the first time in its 64-year history, Playboy magazine will feature a transgender playmate. The decision that Cooper Hefner, a top executive at the magazine, said on Thursday was in keeping with its founding mission of embracing changing attitudes about sex. Now, the French model, Ines Rau, 26, will appear as a November centerfold in the first issue since the death of Hugh Hefner, Mr. Hefner's father, and the magazine's founder. Saying here that selecting Miss Rau very much speaks to the brand's philosophy. This is coming from Mr. Cooper Hefner. It's the right thing to do. We're at the moment where gender roles are evolving. Now, the thing to remember about Ines Rau is that she has gone through gender reassignment surgery. She has been on hormones and transitioning since the age of 16. So over the course of 10 years, you can go and find full nude photos of her right now, and you won't even know that she is trans, that she's gone through the transition. So it's probably not going to impact a lot of people out there. But some of the language that's being used in regards to this, the first transgender playmate, has been called into question. And that has a lot to do with the 1991 spread of Caroline Kasi, who was a Bond girl, who is the first transgender woman to appear in Playboy. And the thing to remember about Caroline here in regards to this issue is she wasn't a Playboy playmate. She wasn't a centerfold. She was a pictorial. It is a little different in regards to the overall statement saying that Ines Rau is the first transgender playmate. That is not inaccurate. She's not the first transgender woman in Playboy, but that's going to, you know, that's been a kind of a point of contention. What's interesting though too is in an interview, actually, Ines actually said that Caroline was a big reason for her coming out, was a big inspiration for her. So this is not going unnoticed. Caroline's contribution to Playboy hasn't gone unnoticed. Now, many people out there have already said this is not what Hugh Hefner would do. This is not what Hugh Hefner would want. But the truth of the matter is, Ines was actually picked by him a few months ago. He knew about it. He knew about it before his death, and he was totally on board with it. And if Hef was on board, you know what? Can you really complain that much? I just want to pause for a hot moment to say thank you very much for watching the channel. And if you guys want to support it, one of the best ways to do that outside of turning off that pesky ad block is to check out my Patreon. That not only supports Mundane Matt, but Three Buck Theater, Forbidden Knowledge, and all the other channels that I run. And your support is greatly, greatly appreciated. So with that out of the way, let's jump into the next story. Now, there's been a lot of controversy recently in gaming surrounding loot boxes and whether or not they are gambling. I do think a lot of this comes off of what happened last year with CSGO Lotto and all of those other sites that use loot boxes from Counter-Strike Global Offensive in order to turn it into a gambling site system worth about $2.3 billion. And one that I have repeatedly said that Valve was 100% aware of and allowed to happen because they profited off of it too, while keeping themselves out of the fire, so to speak. And now we're seeing stuff also happen with, let's say, FIFA, and similar gambling sites have popped up around that. And of course, this holiday season, we have Shadow of War coming out, Star Wars Battlefront coming out, and other games that use loot boxes. And that has gotten a lot of people really, really, really upset. In fact, there is a change.org petition that's asking the basically declaring to the ESRB to make loot boxes gambling and to treat it as such, saying here, as per Google's definition of a gamble, take risky action in the hope of a desired result. And dictionary.com stake to risk money or anything of value on the outcome of something involving chance. Loot boxes and crates in video games fit the description entirely, as every time you open them, you gamble and take chances to win rare in-game content. ESRB's official statement on why they don't consider loot boxes to be gambling, saying, while there's an element of chance in these mechanics, the player is always guaranteed to receive in-game content, even if the character unfortunately receives something they don't want. By their definition, it means that if you gamble and lose the bet and then get compensated by credit, candy bar, or anything else, it is not considered a real gambling, even though that you usually need to buy premium in-game currency with real money to purchase loot boxes/crates. That means if you use a slot machine and you lose the bet and they get compensated by credit or a dollar, it's not considered real gambling. I don't think that this is correct, as video games employ all real-world tactics that are used to make people gamble without mentioning exploitation of addictive behavior and adverse effect it can have on people, especially on minors who are not familiar with those methods. Just because you get a small compensation in the end, it doesn't mean that this is not real gambling. The solution to this problem would be that ESRB declares their respective adult-only rating for video games in which you can gamble, even ones which compensate you with digital items or credits. As you can see here, the petition has just over 9,000 supporters. This is one that is going to probably blow up quite a bit. A lot of people out there hate loot boxes. They do look at it as being predatory in terms of design. And it has a lot more to do, I think, with the publishers versus the developers themselves, even though the developers are the ones that usually get completely crapped on as a result of this. My personal take on it is it's entirely optional. Loot boxes, just like gambling, is entirely optional. Yes, gaming can be addictive, but it should be more pushing for education about how to deal with that. Like if you go to a casino, there's gambler hotline numbers everywhere. You see them on billboards everywhere near a casino. When I lived in San Diego, we had 3 nearby me. And they were everywhere because, yeah, that's a prevalent problem. But when it comes to gaming, I can see how there might be some connection there, but they should spend more on advocacy of trying to get help versus trying to shut down an optional system. It's one that is crappy in terms of mobile games. $60 AAA titles, while they may have some, I don't think are as bad as other people are making them out to be, mostly because it's entirely optional. And I think when you take away the agency of the player, you take away the agency of the person and you put it on the company, that's kind of a shitty thing to do, because the company's in it to make money, the company's in it for these kind of issues, and people out there do have to take responsibility for their own actions. And again, people in the comments will probably seriously disagree with me on this one, but that's where we're going to have to split our opinion on. But also, actually, EA has chimed in as a response to this kind of pushback considering loot crates for Star Wars Battlefront 2, and this is what they said. DICE, developer of Battlefront 2's multiplayer, has taken great care to make sure that star cards and the way they work give you more options in battle. Terms like pay to win and stuff like that are hard to dodge, but the guys are doing an incredible job of trying to balance the system. And yeah, that's a big problem. It's when people start throwing out pay to win, pay to win, pay to win for everything. It makes it really hard to kind of discuss the mechanics of the system as a whole. CSGO Lotto and the FIFA stuff, those were definitely like pay to win in terms of gambling. You would go there, you would buy the keys, you would unlock the crates, you get the coins, whatever, you gamble those things away, and you get real world prizes. Here you only get things that are in game, that are only accessible to your character. And that is what it is. There's no way to gamble them outside of that. You don't get to take anything home. People that are super against loot boxes are people that should be pushing for more advocacy of the type of addictive behavior that can come from gaming, whether it is video games, mobile games, slot machines, football, fantasy leagues, baseball, soccer, whatever else is out there. There are tons of issues that you could be calling upon in terms of the addictive nature of that. Focusing on this, I think is targeting, like a symptom rather than the actual disease. So Southwest Airlines has done something that's never been done before, and that would be an entire unmanned flight from St. Louis to San Francisco 2 days ago. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, wow, they've invested in drone technology or, Uber Air technology, and they've now been using it to fly unmanned flight crews from across the country, the answer is no. It's just an all-female flight crew. All-female pilot, all-female flight attendant, and that's that. Saying here, the first unmanned Southwest flight on a Boeing Airplane 737 MAX 8, all-female crew taken before flying St. Louis to San Francisco. Now, this is a fluff piece, is what it is, but it's interesting nonetheless, because if you look at the total amount of licensed pilots that are currently out there, there's over 500,000 of them that are currently licensed, and only 39,000 of them are females. So having 2 female captains, or a captain and a co-captain, or assistant captain, I don't know, what do you call it? What do you call a co-pilot? That's it. Captain and a co-pilot. I'm an idiot. All right, then you have all-female flight attendant crew. It does make for an unmanned flight, which is, clearly a clever pun. But there are people out there that have been mocking it, saying that you can no longer call it the cockpit. You got to call it the box office, which I actually found that to be pretty damn funny. And some people out there have been decrying this as being sexist or being, like, oh, it's an attack on men, because if there's ever an all-man, craft, they would never say anything about it. They might call it sexist or whatever. I don't know, man. I don't know. I look at a story like this and I think, you know what, Southwest, they looked at the situation and they said, well, let's just make the best of it and we'll take a picture. My question, though, was it planned or was it accidental? Was it just like someone walked in, like a flight attendant walked in, looked around, and they're like, there's all women on this flight. Like, that's all that's there, and so then they stopped and they go, oh, hey, let's get a picture. Let's make this a thing. Cause it is kind of I guess you could say like a watershed moment, so to speak, right? You've got, this never happening before. So it is something to take into account. But the thing is though, and here's my question. Why hasn't it happened before? I mean, honestly, when you want to view equality as being equality, then this should have already been a thing. That's my question about that. But I also don't know how they schedule their flights, and I don't know how they schedule their crews or anything else. This is like a random lottery, perchance, that this happened, or was it something that they put on for a PR stunt? I have no idea. At the end of the day, it's really kind of a non-issue. I think it's a fun little fluff piece. A lot of people out there have gotten kind of mad about this, but those are the people that are kind of mad about everything, that never want to just kind of look for the humor in something. But then again, at the same time, this is being heralded as like an all-female unmanned flight crew. So I can understand some of the pushback. It should be, I think probably maybe the best way to look at it would be, go, hey, look, it's all females on this crew. That's cool. First time it's ever happened. And then drop it after that. You know what I mean? And then drop it. And it appears that that's kind of the case. But the real question here is going to be whether or not the progressive media, the lefty bloggers out there are going to try to make this a big thing and turn it on its head to say, well, are Alaska and Delta and United and American and Spirit and all the other airlines, are they all super sexist for not doing this? So I think the real question next is going to be, like I said, is it going to be a matter of just kind of accepting it for what it is, or are people going to try to turning into something that it's not? And knowing how many people out there like to push for clicks in this regard, I just have a feeling it is going to be something horrible. Here's some real sad and horrific news for you if you like to smoke pot and you live in California. The Northern California fires have burned down 34 pot farms. and there's nothing anyone can do about it. And that number is going to rise according to the people of the California Growers Association. This is bad news for the California pot market. In some respects, I guess. It's bad news because, for one, all that weed is gone. I don't even smoke weed, but it's still, all of it's gone. And that's just, I think, from a business, I'm a businessman, so for me, I'm just like, I know my crops. But at the same time, California was going to run into a problem when it comes to weed, and when it goes legal to sell at the beginning of the year. They were going to have too much. They were going to have so much excess weed that they wouldn't be able to sell it legally, and sell it, since it's still illegal to transport across state lines. They weren't going to be able to do anything with it. Wink, wink. You know what I mean? And so this might actually even up some things in that regard. But still, 34 pot farms have gone down. And that is not good. So if you are in California and you are looking forward to being able to buy legally, you're probably going to want to hit up your local dealer and just be like, what do you got in reserve? Because I need to throw some shit in a baggie, put it in the freezer, and then just forget about it until after New Year's. All right, guys, that wraps up the first episode of Rustl'd. Be sure to leave your comments and your thoughts below. I do look forward to reading them. This, again, is going to be an ongoing series here on the channel. It's kind of where everything's been going, I think, for a while. I do appreciate everyone who watches, and I hope more of you guys come on in, you guys subscribe to the channel and check back for these kind of stories. But if you do like the single standalone videos, don't worry, those will still be happening, just not as frequently. I will be picking and choosing those kind of stories going forward for what deems to be standalone worthy. That's mostly going to do with, let's say, like items or stories involving current events that might be a little bit too tragic for a show like this. Anything involving maybe social justice warriors or regressive leftist news, things along those lines that I do feel require a standalone commentary. But until then, check back, I want to say Monday for the next episode of Rustl'd. I do appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I'll talk to you all later. Have yourself a great weekend, and peace out.